This is L.A. Chung. I'm the local editor for Los Altos Patch, and welcome to Patchcast.
Hi, my name is Ann Ernst, and I'm the editor of Cupertino Patch. Welcome to Patchcast.
Hi, I'm Claudia Cruz, editor of Mountain View Patch, and welcome to Patchcast. Patch is an online network of hyperlocal news sites across the country, but here in the Bay Area, in conjunction with KMVT, we bring you news from Mountain View, Los Altos, and Cupertino.
On the top of today's news, we're going to give you a little update on the 5-year-old boy who died last week. His name is Amartya Chinya. He was hit by a Ford Focus. He was riding his scooter on Vista Court. It's a small court not too far from Lawson Middle School and Cupertino Union School District's main office. There's only 8 houses on the court. The neighbors know one another there. And one of the neighbors was backing out of his driveway at a slow speed, and Amartya went behind him on his little scooter, and the neighbor did not see him and struck him with his vehicle. It's a very, very sad situation. The family is planning on speaking out in advocacy for backup viewers on all vehicles to prevent this type of tragedy from happening again. So our hearts go out to the family and the loss of their lovely little boy. Steve Schott, who is the former Oakland A's owner and a developer locally, has donated $200,000 toward the effort of restoring and maintaining the radar tower on Mount Umunhum. It was part of the Mount Umunhum and the Almaden Air Force Base has this radar tower, which is historic because it was used during the Cold War days when Air Force military were up there watching out on our behalf for Russian planes and other nefarious characters coming into town. So there's been a big effort, grassroots effort, to try and preserve the radar tower. And Steve Schott has put this money out there, and he's hoping they're kind of doing like a challenge grant. He wants somebody to match this grant of his, this donation of his as a grant to help preserve the radar tower. So we'll be following that story as things develop. There are more public hearing meetings coming up. I believe the next one is in September. But we'll keep you up to date on that. There was a group of De Anza students in their environmental studies program that did a great deal of research on the wildlife corridor and the passage of mammals over and under Highway 101. And they discovered that there are 26 mammals that were previously unknown to be crossing the two sides of 101. And because of their research, there is now a greater effort going into creating canals and other areas for them to travel through safely so that they're not on the roads interfering with our travels. As with our vehicles, you know very well you see dead animals on the road all the time, and this will help them. They've discovered tool elk, I can't remember, black-tailed deer, a number of animals that nobody knew were actually living in this area. So it's pretty important stuff that they did, and they did it as students. So congratulations to them for that great research. And now we have a very fun story. There was a marriage proposal at Bittersweet a couple of weeks ago. This young man, Jack Shaw, created this video that we're watching right now, and it's a story of him trying to find his perfect mate, represented by his teddy bear that he built at Build-A-Bear. He keeps going around trying to find the right match, keeps striking out. He's having a real hard time finding his teddy bear's soulmate. He created this video so that it could be shown to his now fiancé in a very public marriage proposal at Bittersweet. He schemed this whole thing so first he created this video, then he talked to the owner, Janice Chua, at Bittersweet, and said that he was going to be bringing in his girlfriend and he was going to be proposing. And the scheme was to get his fiancée there, Kim, was that their friend, who is a videographer, was doing a promotional video and needed some friendly faces there in the background. So they were going there to support their friend. and that explained the balloons and the video and the videographer there. So he sits her down at a table in the middle of Bittersweet, and he excuses himself after a moment. Friend of his brings up a laptop and opens it up and has this video playing. So Catherine sits there and she has her little Build-A-Bear. She has her own little Build-A-Bear that they built together. And she sits there watching this very sweet video of him looking for his mate. And as she's watching this video, she starts catching on. They've talked about getting married in the past, so she knows that it's coming at some point, the true proposal, but she didn't know when. So she's starting to get the gist of it with this video, because the ending, I'm going to give you the spoiler alert, he does find his perfect match, the perfect matching bear. But you don't see the woman's face in the video because it's obviously supposed to represent Catherine. So as Catherine's watching this video and Jack is out of the area, other people who he has planted at Bittersweet start coming up with their own little stuffed animal representations of themselves and showing them to Catherine to see if they're a match for her. And of course they're not. So they turn around and they walk away. Then Jack comes out from his little hiding spot. And of course he has the bear. They greet the bears, and you can see this also online because there is a video of the whole proposal process. Takes her away, sets her down in another area, gets down on one knee and brings out the ring and officially proposes. And in the video that is taken of the marriage proposal, you can see Catherine shaking her head and telling him no. And apparently people in the coffee shop that knew what was going on, when they saw her shaking her head no, they said, "Oh no, poor Jack, he's getting a public no." But she was just joking. It was kind of a payback to Jack for doing this very public proposal, because Catherine is not a very public person. She's a very private person, and she told me that she would have preferred that he had not done it this way, but he wanted it to be a surprise since they had already talked about marriage. So please go online and watch. Here's where you're going to see he finally finds his perfect bear mate, his animal representation, and they greet, and it's love ever after, and look, there they are. And this is supposed to be Catherine, but the real Catherine found out later. So thanks for joining us on Patchcast. We'll see you next week.
The news this week has to lead with the Bullis Charter School, Los Altos School District face-off. After a very brief, I'd say month-long vacation where everybody took a breath and got a little bit of R&R and didn't have to fight anymore. We now have started into, I guess, round 2 this year of Los Altos School District and a Bullis Charter School issue that shows no sign of getting closer to resolution than it did last January. What happened this week is that the Los Altos School District filed its response, its official response in court to Bullis Charter School's request for the Superior Court judge who is handling the case to order it to hand over or to give over one of the 4 schools that have been identified in the Los Altos School District for Bullis's use. Those schools are Almond, Covington, Gardner Bullis, and Santa Rita. The district said in its court filings it was indeed following and was in compliance with Prop 39. This is a state law that says that charter schools must be given reasonably equivalent facilities on par with the with school district children in the district that is our host district. The district said it had followed the order and that it believed it was in compliance. And this is usually how it has responded in the past to lawsuits that Bullis Charter School has filed because it is unhappy with the facilities offer that it has been given. And this is consistent with what the Los Altos School District has filed in the past when it's been answering suits brought by the Bullis Charter School saying that the facilities are inadequate and the district is not following the law. What is different this time, however, is that the district has taken a new tact as well, and I might say it seems like it's taken the gloves off as well. The district for the first time is saying that Bullis Charter School is is skimming students, the more well-heeled, affluent students from the district, and leaving behind students who are more difficult and more expensive to educate. These are the English language learners, children with special needs, special education students, and those who are perhaps minorities and are not as well off. The district contends that and it's not saying that charter schools were made solely for these sorts of students, but what it is saying is that we have these students in our district, and the facilities that the district has must be shared equally with all students. And so therefore, a charter school does not make these facilities equally available to these kinds of students, and it is not doing its job as a charter school within the district. The school district and Bullis Charter School are due in court on August 15th, so there will be some more news coming down in about a couple weeks, and we'll keep you up to date on that. It is now election season. On July 16th, the nomination period officially opened in Los Altos and Los Altos Hills for city council, school boards, any sorts of elected offices across the county. So in Los Altos so far, about a half a dozen people have taken out nomination papers. They have not necessarily turned them in yet, so they're not officially candidates, but they have done what we call pulling the papers, signaling their intent to run. In Los Altos Hills, 2 people have pulled papers for city council, or rather town council seats, and we're waiting to see what happens. The filing date is not until August 10th, and you expect to see a flurry towards the end of that period, because people have to turn in their nomination papers, the qualifying signatures have to be looked at and vetted, and then those candidates will become official candidates. So stay tuned. On Tuesday night, the Los Altos City Council met, and they had a number of items on their agenda. I'll have more on Los Altos Patch for you to read. The one thing I will bring out is the Los Altos City Council's action on the Brown Act. The state, in its last budget package, passed a law that said the cities and counties and all publicly constituted bodies that are required to follow the Brown Act would no longer have to do so for a period of 3 years until 2015. And this is because the state reimburses these bodies for costs associated with meeting the Brown Act requirements. The Brown Act is often called an open meetings law. What it really means is that if a publicly elected body is going to have a meeting and they're going to have certain things on the agenda, they must provide notice and adequate notice to the public 3 days ahead of time. And certainly before the internet and before email and before a lot of things, this had real hard costs to it because the state still reimburses cities and other duly elected bodies. The state was seeking a way of saving money, and so the way it did it was it said, you do not have to follow the Brown Act, and we do not have to reimburse you for a period of 3 years because we are having difficulty with this, or with reimbursing you. The city of Los Altos, like many cities, has signaled their intention to continue to comply with the Brown Act regardless of the cost. On Tuesday night, the Los Altos City Council indeed did that. They formally took an action that said that they would continue to comply with the noticing requirements of the Brown Act, to report out whenever they have a closed session, say for example for litigation purposes, that they will continue to report out after they've taken an action, and other provisions that are covered by the state law. The city has estimated that perhaps it will cost them about $30,000 in revenue, but they see there is a vast public benefit to this. A lot of the residents believe that this is really important for cities to do, and so they're concerned that any diminution of transparency would be only bad news for a city. I'm going to leave you with a new segment I'm starting that's to provide news about new businesses that are starting in Los Altos. This time I'm going to tell you a little bit about Malia Mills, which is an upscale swimwear boutique that just opened in Los Altos. Malia Mills has swimwear boutiques in Manhattan and Brooklyn, in Los Angeles, and Larkspur in Marin County, and now it has one in Los Altos. The first thing I asked Carol Mills, who's the sister of Malia Mills and a co-owner, is why Los Altos? I understand New York, I understand LA. They also have sites in the Hamptons on Long Island, and I said, I understand the Hamptons, but I don't understand Los Altos. And they told me there's a little bit of an inside track here. For one, Passerelle Investment Company, which owns the building that they're in, put together a very passionate plea to come to Los Altos and put together a very good package, because Los Altos is becoming known as a very boutique-y kind of downtown area with clothing that you can't get anywhere else. And because Malia and Carol Mills' brother, Peter Mills, lives in Los Altos, and they come to Los Altos quite often. They see it, they know what the community is like, and that was enough to convince them they wanted to give it a try and be part of the revitalization of downtown Los Altos. She obviously is an expert in this area, and the motto of their company is "Love thy differences." If you hate trying on swimsuits and you hate getting a new swimsuit, probably the reason why is because it doesn't fit. And Malia Mills understands fit, and that's why they've opened their store in Los Altos. Thanks for watching Los Altos Patch on Patchcast, and we'll see you next week.
Among the top news in the region is actually the arrest of a man down in Gilroy for some landscaping scams. And the reason why we're highlighting it on our site today is because part of the arrest and the awareness that was being brought to the South County region was actually done through efforts with KMVT, the Gilroy Police Department, and the DA's office with Deputy District Attorney Janet Berry came to film a public service announcement to warn people that there is a man, or potentially, allegedly, possibly other people, trying to scam elderly people from homeowners from money for shabby landscaping work. So, thanks to the effort and again the work between these three different two law enforcement agencies and Community Access Television, this man has been arrested. And now on to some of the Mountain View news. On Saturday, July 21st, Mountain View hosted the 3rd annual Disability Pride Parade. You may have seen some of it occur on Castro Street between 11 a.m. and approximately 11:30, and then afterwards it spilled over into Pioneer Park. But Disability Pride Parade was presented by the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center and brought together an array of people and allies to try to raise awareness that people with handicaps or disabilities, whether they're blind, deaf, in a wheelchair, maybe they have another chronic illness, they are part of our community, that they want to, they're advocating for themselves in the state legislature, and that they want to, among these things, be taken seriously. Among the speakers at the event were Assemblyman Paul Fong, Hopefully they'll be back next year. Another story that Mountain View Patch has been working on is about the so-called hacker houses. In an article published by the New York Times 2 weeks ago, it was raised that there was this new idea in Silicon Valley that addresses, one, the lack of rental housing, possibly the lack of some hotels, and also the notion that like-minded individuals who are programmers, developers, want to not only spend time together in places like Hacker Dojo, 500 Startups, and Y Combinator, but also live or stay in short-term facilities, like a sort of a bed and breakfast, in and around different cities in Silicon Valley. Among those cities is Mountain View, and currently the city enforcement unit of City Hall has found that between 2 and 3 houses, the hacker homes here in Mountain View, may be in violation of the city housing zoning and possibly transit occupancy tax codes. This is something that Mountain View Patch will continue to look into and bring you more information. We've received a response from the captains, the managers of 2 of the homes, one located in Old Mountain View, another one near the Alice Avenue, Sylvan Park area, saying that they believe that they're above board and everything they do is above board and legal, and that they had not received any letter from the city stating otherwise. However, Mountain View Patch was informed by a code enforcement officer that the city is currently drafting a letter to send to these house managers. So stay tuned on Patch for more information about what happens. And then again, let us know how this concerns you. If not, other questions you have, and what does this indicate about what's happening in Mountain View? Is it again a lack of housing? Is it a lack of hotels? Is there something else that's going on that these homes could be addressing? The city appointed on July 22nd a new fund czar. J.P. Lamontagne is now the new Community Services Director, and he comes with 28 years of experience in similar roles in Peoria, Arizona. He is replacing David Muela, who retired December 2011 after more than 20 years at City Hall. Part of the duties of a Community Services Director is, of course, to oversee parks and recreations, community services, building and activities for the teen, like the teen house, and an array of other things, like community yard sale, Thursday Night Live. There's so many things that the Community Services Department does. And again, a lot of the fun things that we enjoy in the city. So we look forward to bringing you more information about Mr. Lamontagne and how he's settling in, and look forward to having an interview with him on Patch soon. Nomination period has begun across the state of California, and the nominations are for different political offices that people are vying to fill. Here in Mountain View, currently there are 6 candidates for city council. That's 2 more than we had reported in the last Patchcast. Originally, it was on the first day of nomination period, July 16th. Current Mayor Mike Kaspersak and Vice Mayor John Inks pooled nomination papers, which means that they will now then seek signatures to get them. They need enough signatures to turning to the County Board of Elections, which then need to be verified, and that would then put them on the ballot. In addition to Kaspersak and Inks, on the first day of the nomination period, Margaret Capriles, a longtime resident of Mountain View, pulled some paperwork, as did software developer Chris Clark. Chris Clark, you might recall, ran for city council in 2008 and decided to take a break in 2010 and has now returned to try to win a spot on council. In addition to the 4 reported earlier, 2 more have joined the slate of candidates, or hope to join the slate of candidates. That includes John McAllister, the owner of the Baskin Robbins on El Camino and Miramonte, and Mr. Jim Neal, a resident of Old Mountain View and employee in this tech industry as an information technology expert. Mr. Neal, you may recall, was very vocal against the smoking ban, finding it to be too restrictive for people who who he felt were already respecting the smoking laws in Mountain View. So stay tuned. Come back to mountainview.patch.com for interviews with different candidates and for more information on how you can be informed and prepared for the November 2012 election cycle. Mountain View sweetheart company Outright.com was acquired last week by global company GoDaddy.com. GoDaddy, as you may remember, is a web hosting domain company. And they, for an undisclosed amount, purchased Outright.com, which is located on the corner of Castro and Villa Street, right above the former Caps Pizzeria, now called 191, and has now acquired this 24-person team. According to GoDaddy, according to our sister company TechCrunch, GoDaddy Outright.com will remain in their offices here in Mountain View, and GoDaddy now sees this as having a Silicon Valley hub. Outright.com is an online bookkeeping company that works with both small businesses and individuals to maintain their accounting. So congratulations to the folks at Outright.com for, I guess fulfilling one of those Silicon Valley dreams. Peninsula Youth Theater kicks off its musical Hairspray on July 28th. Everyone here in Mountain View who loves the wonderful story of Tracy Turnblad, who gets chosen to become a dancer on the Corny Collins show, should head over to the Mountain View Center of the Performing Arts starting July 28th for any of the shows between then and August 5th. And lastly, Mountain View Patch wondered what it was like to be part of a storage war. You know the show I'm talking about, where people in Southern California bid for storage units that have been taken over by the storage facilities. Well, this happens here locally as well, and Patch visited the Peninsula Storage Center on Leghorn and Independence on July 24th and watched a real live auction, actually 4 real live auctions take place. And this wraps up another segment of Patchcast. Thank you to the staff and crew of KMVT for helping us to bring you news from your local communities every week. We hope to see you again soon. And if you have any tips, ideas for stories, email either myself at mountainviewpatch.com, LA Chung at Los Altos Patch, or Ann Ernst at Cupertino Patch. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.